ready to get started?
Crawford, would you like me to take roll to establish quorum?
Yes, just a second here. Yes, would you do that, please?
Are you ready?
Yes, please start.
Okay. Crawford Carpenter.
Sure.
Nicole Green. Lenita Mims. Not hearing or seeing Lenita. Ozzy Carter.
Here.
Brenda Lee.
Here.
Raina Moore.
Here.
Scott Parsons.
Here.
Latanya Thompson.
Here.
Reverend Julius Van Hook. Not hearing or seeing him. Justin Van Zerber.
Here.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Quorum is established. Meeting can continue.
Well, thank you very much, Ariana. Well, to begin, good morning, welcome. We're the Community Advisory Board, known as CAB. We are established by the Community Corrections Partnership, known as CCP. Would we be kind enough here to go around the room? We'll start with you. If you could, Justin, and the county you represent, and pardon me, the area you represent, and how long you've been with CAB?
Justin Van Zerber, resident of West County. This is my first year with CAB.
Good morning, Ozzy Carter, resident of East County. And this is my third and final year. Someone's getting in trouble.
I'm Rena Moore. I'm an East County resident from the city of Antioch. This is my first year.
Latanya Thompson, West County, first year. Nicole Green, East County, third year.
Brenda Lee, West County, first year.
Crawford Carpenter, Central County. This is my third year.
Scott Parsons from the city of Moraga, representing Central County.
Thank you. And could we move next to the staff? Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself? We'll start in the room here, please. Any staff? I'll start with you, Denise, please.
I'm Denise Zabkevich. I'm the Research and Evaluation Manager with the Office of Reentry and Justice.
Okay, as well as county agencies.
Hi, good morning. My name is Blanca Hernandez. I'm a deputy public defender.
Thank you. And
Hello, everybody. My name is Dante Blue. I work with Rubicon Programs.
thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Trace Guillory here from the Office of Reentry and Justice.
Thank you. And then let's see, how many people do we have on the chat? I guess we can take a quick minute here. Why don't you introduce yourself very quickly because we do have time constraints this morning.
Johnny Sheffy.
Good morning. This is Susan Woodhouse, DFO from the Public Defender's Office.
Excellent.
Hi, Rupel Stroud, principal of the adult school in the detention facilities.
Thank you, Christina.
Good morning, everybody. Christina Jackson with the ORJ.
Alejandra.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alejandra. I'm with Supervisor Ken Carlson's office.
And Jody.
Good morning, Jody Sickenetter. I'm the Director of Inmate Services for the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. And Stephanie.
Yes, I'm a member of the general public, a concerned citizen who is staying engaged and checked in. I live in District 2.
Oh, thank you. Jamie.
Jamie Jeanette with Health, Housing, and Homeless Services.
And Jana.
Jana Evans, Lead Reentry Transition Specialist with the Office of Ed in the 3 county jails.
Gacy.
Casey Garcia Rain Community Development, and I live in South Central County.
Thank you. And finally, Ariana.
Garyana Youngblood, and I'm with the ORJ.
And did we miss? Oh, Charles Brown.
Good morning, everyone. I am Charles Brown. I'm a business service representative and reentry coordinator with the Workforce Development Board, Contra Costa County.
Thank you. Now, did we miss anybody? I'm not sure if I'm seeing everybody on the screen. I hope we got everybody. Well, thank you. Prior to announcements, let's kind of set the table for what our decorum should be in this particular venue. First of all, persons who wish to address the Community Advisory Board during public comment on matters within the jurisdiction of CAB that are not on our agenda or who wish to comment may comment in person, via Zoom, or calling. Those participating in person should make public comment when called upon. Those participating via Zoom should indicate they wish to speak by using the raise your hand feature in the Zoom app. And then finally, for those calling in, they should indicate they wish to speak by pushing *9 to raise your hand and *6 kindly to unmute your phone. Let's pause a moment and review our purpose. Our purpose is to advise CCP by assessing the implementation of the County Reentry Strategic Plan. Some, but not all of our responsibilities are advising CCP on engagement strategies, advising county agencies regarding programs for implementation in our county, and encouraging outcomes that are consistent with the county's reentry strategic plan. Let's move next to announcements. Are there any announcements? We'll do first from CAB members. Any announcements?
It's not related to CAB, but on the CBO.
That's fine.
Okay. I wanted to give an announcement for Health Right 360 in reference to their CRG program that is open to all within Contra Costa County, not just reentry, for free mental health services. So they provide SUD therapy as well as mental health therapy, and they have a licensed clinician on site. So, and they have therapy every Tuesday and Thursday.
Any other announcements from CAB members? I do have an announcement. We are pleased to share that we will be hosting an AB 109 mini summit. And this is going to be with Alameda County, San Francisco County, and Solano County. And by the way, thank you, Patrice and Gariana, you may not know it, for stepping up to the plate, because we'll be coming to you to really bring this doggone thing together. It'll be held on August 23rd at 10 o'clock in the morning. Our site host is going to be Tiffany Anaya. I think, Tiffany, you're with us here today. Thank you. And the board members who wish to.
Tiffany and I are with
Oh,
the organization she's with.
excuse me, with the Reentry Success Center. No, I just thought you'd do it at your house. You have to change the address. And thank you, Patrice. And the address is going to be at 912 McDonald Avenue, and that'll be in Richmond. So again, really appreciate Tiffany, you stepping up, and this should be an interesting event, to say the least. Now, for board members who would like to attend, contact Patrice, because it's key that we are in compliance with the Brown Act, because we don't want this to be considered a regular CAB meeting. So we've got to watch our forum. So if you would check with her, and again, we're looking forward to this meeting with our sister counties, and it's really a get to know. We're not going to have a heavy agenda. And the key is for the dynamic three that we just talked about. That's Brenda, say 4 now or 5 now. Brenda, Tanya, Raina, and Justin. For all of you, some contacts in some of the other counties that maybe assist you as you move forward in 2024. And we're going to basically, our agenda, where some of the things we're going to look at is, how are you structured? What type of resources do you have? And what things are you currently involved in? And one of the neat things is going to be, what barriers do you see are popping up? Maybe there are similar barriers that everybody as a unit could address going forward. Now, again, those are just some of the things. It's going to be informal, so we're not going to make it formal, but we just thought we would share that with you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is a gathering of similar community advisory boards of other jurisdictions. So Alameda County, I believe you mentioned San Francisco County.
And Solano.
And Solano County.
Yes.
And along with Contra Costa, so.
Yeah.
Three of those engaged community members from other jurisdictions that are working on similar work.
And what's interesting, Solano County will probably bring 3 or 4 people. We're going to have a few people, and we haven't heard back yet if additional people will be coming from Alameda as well as San Francisco. I'll be reaching out to those ladies more than likely beginning of next week, and then it's run, and then I'll be visiting you prior to the event just to make sure we're doing everything and it's according to whole. Okay, enough of the announcements. Staff announcements. Oh,
Yes, I have an announcement, Crawford. Is that okay? Yes, so again, I'm Charles Brown with the Workforce Development Board. Wanted to announce that we have an upcoming Career and Resource Fair. We're calling it the East Contra Costa Career and Resource Fair. It's scheduled for Wednesday, August 23rd from 10 to 1. And we're in partnership with the Pittsburgh Adult Education Center, which is part of our Contra Costa Workforce Collaborative Network. And so we're expecting up to 35 exhibitors, both employers and resource providers. So about 27 plus employers and about up to 7 resource providers. I did send an announcement out to the AB 109 network. And we also have the flyer in Spanish as well. I just sent it out again yesterday. And so we hope those of you who provide direct services will refer your clients to register. It's a free event. And there's an Eventbrite registration link in the flyer. So hope to have many of your clients attend. Just wanted to share that. Thank you for allowing me to share, Crawford.
in this matter of housekeeping, there is some conversation. Somebody is not on mute totally. There's talking in the background. If you could double check and put yourself on mute, we would kind of appreciate it. And Ozzy, you said you had an announcement.
Yes, thank you. I would like to announce that the District Attorney's Office Neighborhood Restorative Partnership is currently looking for interested individuals who would like to sit on the panels. Now, what we do at Neighborhood Restorative Partnership is individuals who have infractions, misdemeanor infractions, who have never been in trouble before, have an opportunity to have their cases dismissed. And it's a panel generally of 3 individuals. And what happens, there's a training period, about 6 to 7 weeks training. And after that, you will sit on the panels with, we have currently 2 cohorts, cohort 1 and 2. So the recruiting for the 3rd cohort. And we actually, well, if you're interested, we can have a conversation. I do have flyers on my hard drive, and I can share that with you. But we're definitely looking for more panelists. It's been a really very insightful process for me to be able to be a part of that process. And because of me being formerly incarcerated, I understand the entire dynamics. And also the individuals that are coming before us have an opportunity not to have an infraction. And this is the restorative lens that many of us are advocates for, because we know that jail is a harmful place and we're trying to do a more holistic approach.
Thank you. Scott, you said you had an announcement.
Well, yeah, today, of course, at 2 o'clock, everyone, probably aware of that. tour of the jail, the MDF down in Martinez. That's at 901 Fourth Street in downtown Martinez. Parking is always kind of an issue down there, so I wouldn't walk too close, right? To find a good parking space. Assistant Sheriff Simpkins is going to lead that tour. This is much more than a tour of the MDF, though. He's going to be speaking about programs in West County that are emerging, and we're going to kind of get a good profile of where the sheriff is headed. I'm excited about it.
Have fun.
And I used to work there. Yeah, I will.
See you when you get back.
Yeah, well, you know, not everyone comes to my party.
Well, thank you, Scott, for arranging that and sharing that. Are there any other?
Crawford, Jody has her hand raised, and Casey Rain also wants to make public comment.
Jody, yes.
Sorry, it's actually about the tour. The address, I'm not sure why 901 Court Street comes up online. It's actually 1000 Ward, W-A-R-D. It's literally right around the corner, and that's a huge parking lot, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys went to the right address.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
2 o'clock.
Okay, Casey?
You can still go.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Casey Rain. I'm the owner and president of Rain Community Development. And together with my colleagues, Bright Research Group, we have started work with the Office of Reentry and Justice on the Restorative Justice Initiative planning process for the design and implementation of restorative justice programs in Contra Costa County that I know you all have been working on for a while and thinking about and anticipating. So just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself. Our goal is to embed and support the adoption of restorative justice principles and practices and programs throughout the county. And what we have upcoming for the planning process is 4 phases. And I just wanted to let you know where we are at and that there's going to be upcoming opportunities for public and community and stakeholder input. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you guys. So over the next 2 years, our first phase is to do a comprehensive needs assessment. Then we're going to be working on, based upon the needs assessment and the determination of the needs and the opportunities and the sentiment of this community, we'll work on the program or initiative design, procurement, and figuring out how to implement it. And then over the course of the second year, we will be working on intensive implementation and monitoring. Currently, we're starting off the needs assessment by kicking off a listening and learning series. Attending this meeting, listening to you today is one of those opportunities. I really appreciate being here. We're also going to be reviewing reports, reviewing local data, talking to different stakeholders, and all of this will culminate in the end of September with a date to be determined, with a launch conversation where we can hear more from all of you. So I just wanted to take this moment. I hope for another opportunity, perhaps in a more formal agendized setting, to share more about our experience and the project and our work plan. And I'm really looking forward to observing today's discussion and learning more about the ongoing work that is happening in our community around reentry, safety, and justice. Thank you.
Casey, good morning again, and thank you, and welcome to the whole.
Thank you.
All right. Without any other announcements, I think we're clear. Let's move to the
Crawford,
next.
Rachel has her hand up.
Okay, Rachel.
Thank you. I do want to make an announcement. My name is Rachel Rosekind, and I'm a District 1 appointee to the Measure X Community Advisory Board. And I want to invite CAB members and others within your networks to please our next meeting, which takes place on Wednesday, August 16th. So that's next Wednesday at 5 p.m. It will be taking place at the County Administration Building, but also on Zoom. And it's a highly important opportunity for residents, coalitions, and partners to voice concerns and provide meaningful input on community needs and priorities, and our process for allocating remaining Measure X funds. During this meeting, the Measure X Community Advisory Board will update our community on how many dollars are left that are unallocated, educate members of the Community Advisory Board and the public on the current timeline and process for allocating those funds, educate members and the public on the past needs assessment process and outcomes, review the remaining unfunded recommendations from the initial round, which took place in 2021, and invite input from community members and stakeholders, in particular to share with us what has changed and emerged since that needs assessment in 2021 that feels like an urgent need to prioritize county funding via Measure X. So again, I encourage you all to come and share your expertise and insights, and also please spread the information widely within your networks. We're really looking forward to hearing from community, and community input is vital to our process as a community advisory board. Thank you.
Rachel, and good morning also. Now, before we move, let's double check. Go around the room here. Looks like we're okay. Please check the screen there, Gariana and Denise. And I think we're ready. Are we ready to move to the next agenda item? The next agenda item is going to be public comment. Is there public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on this agenda? Let me check the screen. We'll check the room. Remember, oh, excuse me, Dante.
Yes, yes. So I just wanted to commend CAB for this summit. You know, we talked a long time about trying to do regional work and trying to learn from each other and really just to create those connections. So I see that moving forward, I think that's definitely a positive. You know, this is not easy work, and nobody's doing it right, you know, and so learn from the triumphs of others, the mistakes of others, and you know, and it's also it says something about this county, right? Because although this was the first CAB and it's kind of led a lot of different things, right? We're not hiding it, right? And kind of holding it close to the vest. You know, we think that it's good information that we have and willing to share with others. So I think the spirit of what's happening is definitely commendable. So I just wanted to note that. I know that was an announcement, but it actually wasn't on the agenda, so that's why I put it here in public comment. So.
Well, thank you, and hopefully with your background, you'll be able to join us. Okay, any other announcements in the room? Right here, okay. Now let's, those via Zoom, any announcements or comments, I'm sorry, on items that are not on the agenda? I think we're clear. Let's move then to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the record of actions from our July 13th.
I'm sorry, Crawford. Before we move to the record of action, Stephanie has her hand raised.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't quick enough. And I don't know if this is exactly the right place. So please bear with me. I just want to bring up a couple of Board of Supervisor meetings ago that Representative Mark DeSaulnier came and presented that 1.18 million has been awarded. And I think it is through the probation department, but it is for strategies for supporting youth in the community. And it's money, I guess, that's going to train Contra Costa County law enforcement agencies on adolescent development and effective youth interaction. And so I am taking this opportunity to ask that it be made available to the public, that maybe there's a presentation that the public and involved agencies and communities are aware of what the training is, and to have some kind of presentation so that it's understood by the wider public, just exactly what the training is, and then what they will be doing to train the youth, help the youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Now let me slow up. Okay, yes. Patrice.
Is it okay if I could go ahead and respond to?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned, thank you, Stephanie, for raising that. I guess that should have been an announcement of ours. But yeah, through the probation department, the ORJ will be administering and working in partnership with strategies for you to deliver this training. And we've also sought some research grants to do an evaluation of those applied practices. What we hope to do is provide an update through the Racial Justice Oversight Body at some later date. Once we have a few more things ironed out around the receipt of those funds and fleshing out our partnership with the strategies for you. But yeah, that is definitely our intention to bring that forward, particularly to the Racial Justice Oversight Body, since a lot of the data that was collected through that body helped to inform our approach to creating this initiative and this opportunity with strategies for you.
Great, thank
We'll
you.
have to CAB if CAB wishes to have a.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? We're going to slow down here a little bit. Any comments? Anybody from Zoom? Any comments? I think we're clear. Then let's move now to the approval of the record of actions from our July 13th, 2023 CAB general meeting. Now, my assumption is that all of the board members have read that, so we're not going to take up time going through sentence by sentence, page by page. I will give you 15 seconds. Then after that, I would like to have a motion to approve or amend, etc.
So in 9 seconds, then I will. Yeah, 5 seconds. I will make a motion that we approve the minutes from the July 13th general cabinet.
Okay, approval was made. Would you please note, Gariano? The motion was made by Scott. The second was made by Nicole. And would you be kind enough to record the individual votes as we vote yay or nay when you make the roll call?
Absolutely. Starting with Crawford,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Lanita is not present. Ozzy Carter,
Aye.
Brenda Lee,
Aye.
Raina Moore,
Aye.
Scott Parsons,
Aye.
Latanya Thompson.
Aye.
Reverend Julius Van Hook is not present. Justin Van Zerber.
Aye.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ayes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving now to the next agenda item. On the agenda, you'll see item number 4. And we're going to take a look at CAB priorities for AB 109 excess funds. Nicole, would you be kind enough to update us regarding your committee's efforts? It's an extremely important area.
Yes, thank you. So last month, we had a great meeting, great conversation, and we were unable to finish it. So we definitely wanted to bring it back to allow for our partners to be able to talk about their piece. So we left off with employment as well as public defender's office. So we're back here today to kind of pick up from that amazing conversation. I won't go into each slide again. Thank you for starting there. So we'll I'll just give a quick recap due to timing because we have some other items and then we'll jump right to the questions. So again, our goal is to focus on the AB 109 excess funds and our recommendations to CCP, which is our first around housing, behavioral health, and employment, pre-release services, as well as coordinating a work group. And our goals was to not just focus on our current CBOs, but also reach out to some of the county networking programs to get an idea of what's working for them, some possible barriers and or where they may see areas where these funds, we really wanted to get the idea from the community and our partners on where they may feel like these funds can be utilized, as well as bring it to the CAB to get all of their opinions. So I will turn it over to Justin and then we can jump right into the questions.
Yeah, I think the only other thing to be reminded of here is this is one-time use funds. So these won't be carrying on into multiple fiscal years. But yeah, I think we'll turn it back to John Pay If you can.
And just to add on to that last piece, yes, it's one-time funds. I like how we work together. It is additionally one-time funds, but our initial goal at the end is to, based on information that we get and how we use it, is to look at how we could, with our current budget, where can we make adjustments so they can continue, correct? So a lot will be taken away from all your feedback and suggestions that will actually help us in policy and budget figure out our next move.
Thank you for that. All right, so that's your time today. You can introduce yourself and then maybe go through the questions.
So I know you have a lengthy agenda today, so I try not to take up too much of your time, but also try to be as thorough as possible. Again, my name is Dante Ruth. I'm here representing Rubicon Programs. For those that don't know Rubicon, we're a nonprofit headquartered here in Contra Costa County. And so we've been around for 50 years, serving the community. And we see ourselves as an anti-poverty organization. And so really all that we do is really trying to address poverty, the causes of, etc. So here we're also the contracted provider for employment services under AB 109, where we're contracted to provide services to about 200 individuals a year, at least 200 new people enrolled. The way in which we do our program, we work with people for up to 3 years. And so in any given year, so for instance, last year, I think our new enrollments, this was kind of a little bit down because of COVID. So I think we had 175 or so, and served a total of about 350 last program year. So that gives you a sense of kind of the size and scope. And so, and those are individuals at all kind of points in their process, right? From recently released, maybe someone's been out a little while and has now decided, made the decision that they're ready to seek services and support. To individuals who maybe, life has been going pretty good and they maybe just had a blip, right? In terms of what's happened. And so really what we're thinking about gaps, it's just as varied, right? There's definitely some that are more prominent than others. And one of the things that we're really seeing is how can we, two things. One, how can we get more people to engage, right? So we get a number of referrals. Sometimes people don't show up or they show up one time or 2 times. And so, what are the reasons for that fallout? And then also, what are the, what's really happening in their life to kind of prevent them from, essentially doing some things that help themselves, right? And so this is why when I was here last month, I spoke about, we really try to turn to thinking about the way in which we use incentives, right? In terms of the goals and objectives. And so trying to incentivize a person for obtaining a job placement or completing a certain phase of the program, which we think is, definitely a good way to increase engagement, but also to show value, right, to the individual. I think programs for a while have kind of shunned away from giving people money, right? But the reality is like money it fixes things. You don't really know. And when you try to write a proposal and list out all the things you're going to spend on, it's always inevitable that whoever comes in the door is going to have stuff that's not on that list, right? And so being able to dynamically address the issues that they're kind of confronting, it has been, one of the, I think, shift that we've made in terms of our approach. And so we've also tried to provide stipends because when we're trying to get someone to go to training, it's harder to go to 90 days of training when you're not making any money and then make it through those 90 days. I mean, just gas alone, right, is gonna eat into your pockets. And so we saw a lot of individuals who were essentially you get them, you kind of find them in this interesting stage in their life, and then you get them to a place where they're not really that far away, and the first thing that happens knocks them off. And so how can you give them the opportunity to even maybe save a little bit of money? Then you can actually start to have real conversations around saving, around investments, around thinking about the future, because now there's actually this kind of longer term engagement. And so those are things that we've explored and some of the gaps that we tried to overcome in terms of trying to have more engagement with folks for longer and more meaningful. And again, trying to, use some of the research that talks about the impact of positive incentives, right, in terms of behavior change. kind of make things happen. So in terms of our organization, you know, we do approach this from a wraparound kind of philosophy. And I know that's, you know, definitely cliche and everyone is doing that. But in ours, what we try, the way in which we approach our theory of change is we think about the 4 pillars of prosperity. And for us, that's improved income for individuals, right? Trying to help them think about asset development. Also, the importance of being in a community, right? And so really emphasizing building a community. And then the 4th piece is wellness, right? Because, you know, wealth is health, health is wealth, right? If you can't, you know, a lot of individuals have been disconnected from public systems entirely, including health systems. So just getting them engaged with that, right? As again, letting folks know that we actually care about them. So those are some of the other things that we do provide legal services as well. We have a legal services team within our organization. We're also the contractor provider for the county's workforce development board. So we're the lead agency in the CCWC. You heard Charles speak about it earlier, which is the Contra Costa Workforce Collaborative, where we have, I think it's 9 other partners that we work with, from adult eds to the community colleges, some other nonprofits as well. And so all of our individuals who come into our program, whether they enter the door through the Success Center or employment program, through the WIOA services, we always do try to wrap around the individual, whatever other supports that we have. So it's actually an emphasis of our organization right now to try to do that. And so I think that that's, you know, one of the great things about the Success Center is you can kind of co-locate and make it easier for folks to kind of get to the stuff that they need. And so we really try to build upon that. You know, one of the things that I would say is in this work, you know, I really think the holy grail is trying to build pipelines to employers, right? So I know that you spoke about this last meeting and thinking about how can the county impact this population as an employer, right? And so we're definitely interested in exploring that and encouraging the county to think about that and to be a landing spot of an entry for a number of the entry level roles that it has, for the thousands of jobs that it has on its books. We do realize though that one of the challenges is that for most, if not all, county positions, they require a driver's license, right? And that's a challenge for folks, even when you're not driving. You might just be a clerk in an office. And so, you know, there are archaic rules on the books such as that really cut against this population. Obviously, getting the license is something that won't work with individuals, but we really want to promote with this population. What are your skills? What are you doing to your job? Your ability to do the job, and they're getting no's and things of that nature enough. And so, you know, that's definitely an advocacy piece, is have the county look at driver's licenses for non-driving jobs and see if they'd be willing to remove that, or even why they do that for those jobs. So I'll look that up. And then also in terms of changes that can be made, I know that this is one-time funding, but we also just realized that as the nonprofits, we do our best to hold up the community. But we also, you know, definitely have challenges in terms of staff turnover. And so the ability, I think, you know, I know several years ago, CAB, you know, really encouraged individuals or individual organizations who can't control what they pay their people, but try to encourage them to do what they can to pay living wages, right? We're here in the Bay Area. I think a lot of the jobs for the nonprofits are, you know, in the low 20s when you're direct service, right? Low to mid 20s. You know, truthfully, anybody getting less than $25 an hour is struggling, right? And so it's hard to support people when you need support as well. And so, you know, finding ways to help build that in that network of providers and make sure that those who are doing that work, who have the experience over the years, right, that we're doing enough to support them as well. And so, I think that's another place where CAB can make an impact, is in really encouraging the county to continue to provide COLAs, encouraging employers to pay, and then maybe even having conversations about kind of what you expect at work or doing this hard work at least make, right? Something like a minimum wage for our nonprofits out here. And let's see here, and the last thing I'll just say is that, and I'll take any questions that you have for me, is that, really for us, I talked about working with individuals for the long run. It's very easy, we can bring individuals in, we go through our 2-week foundations course where we're really building relationships, kind of, changing their perspective in terms of the problem that they're trying to solve, right? Seeing that like, yeah, you're not the problem, but you can be the solution, right? There's definitely things happening in society. There's definitely biases, all these other things. But at the same time, you're gonna get out of this what you put in. And so we start with that. We can definitely get somebody into work within a couple of months, right? But it's really about the long haul. And for us, we're trying to build that momentum towards quality jobs. So it's another reason why, partnering with some of the last bastions of pensions and unions, being government, is a target employer for us, whether that's city, county, etc., or some of the special districts like schools, post offices, etc. And for us, when we talk about a quality job, we're really looking at kind of first compensation, and by compensation, we're thinking, of course, about pay, but then also about upward mobility, right? So we'll be able to be compensated for your contributions, right? In terms of promotion, so is there upward mobility? We also think about in terms of security, which is the benefits. So does it provide health care? Does it provide retirement? And then also does it provide time off, right? Paid time off for wellness. And then the third piece is quality of life. And the two big things that we look at here, and of course, this is a continuum. So how much of these do you provide, right? Would make you more or less a quality job from our perspective. But in quality of life, the two things that we're really looking at is commute, right? That's a stressor for individuals, and oftentimes causes a lot of issues because they're not able to engage in the community, which is one of our pillars and one of our emphasis in terms of our work. And then also schedule, right? So is there flexibility? Are you able to actually engage when you raise your family, do those type of things? Quality of life. And so those are really the three metrics that we kind of look at, again, compensation, quality of life, and then security, in terms of trying to judge whether a job is more or less a quality job. And so, so obviously any advocacy and support that we can do to put people on a trajectory towards more of those jobs is really what our plan and objectives are.
Thank you so much for that. Before you, I have a question.
It's rock, paper, scissors.
One, I really appreciate the acknowledging of advocacy outside of the fiscal constraints, right? I think this conversation is really aimed at spending dollars, but in parallel with spending dollars, it's also amplify other barriers or issues that are going on. So I really appreciate that. When you're talking about the number of people that you're serving, I think you referenced 175 people or something like that last year. Do you feel like the funds and resources are there to support all the individuals who are coming to receive services, outside of obviously those stipends and incentives that you all are trying to increase, but just the people that are coming through the door, do you think the resources are there to provide those services that you acknowledge?
Yeah, so we definitely have a substantial contract where, we have, for us as an organization, one of the things is that we do have this economies of scale where we can, we have some good contracts and some terrible ones, right? And maybe kind of find some balance there. And in terms of this one, there's definitely, I think, sometimes we run into issues just around staffing a little bit, right? When it gets heavy, I do think that the compensation is fair. The challenge that we really run into, and we've run into this more so lately, I think has just been kind of the way in which costs have risen, at kind of a lot faster than the contract has moved, right? And so we tend to try to carve out a lot of resources for participant support in our contract, which is pretty thin in terms of staffing. And I will tell you that rent costs have just kind of skyrocketed. And really that's the one place where we really don't get by the time we pay for participant support or direct service, and then for staffing, there's really nothing left to actually pay for space. And so we're really we end up, that's the one place in our contract that is really underfunded, and we have to end up leveraging from either other fund development that we do or other resources that we have.
Very helpful. When you say space, what do you mean? When you say?
Yeah, so like rent costs. So,
Okay.
As an example, we do the Success Center contract. I want to say the rent is probably, from the time that we started, it's probably 30% more, 40% more, right? And the contract is certainly nowhere near that, right?
Right.
And so that's a huge cost, per month. And so we see though that right now for the employment, and that's what we're talking about. This has really pushed it to actually start looking to purchase property, right? Just to try to find that balance. Because of course, we understand that resources are limited, and so we're trying to be creative in how we make it work. But right now, that is one of the pinches that we feel, is that we really don't really bill a lot for the actual true facility costs that we incur. We're renting 2 spaces right now. Our most expensive space is actually our smallest space, which is the space in Concord. Pretty much that almost eats up the entire contract. So,
well, I mean, that's, thank you for bringing that point up. And I asked because it was just really exciting to me, because I know that's one of the things that we've talked about in one of larger other counties on how they do that when it comes to, but that's one of the things that I not just only think that nonprofit space, but also other programs is reference to that overhead costs. And then still trying to provide services to individuals. That's a very good point.
and it's unique because when you're, serving, over 100 individuals, I mean, that calls for space and by itself, right? Like, and so, for instance, our Concord office is 100% that this program. Every now and then we have other grant programs that kind of like this in and out, right? But essentially, this is 90% work for us, right? And so, in order to, and also, key component of this work, I said it earlier, right, is to try to create spaces where individuals can kind of come to. And so having that space is critical. If there wasn't a space between Antioch and Richmond, that they use this service for, right? All of our Concord, all of our, Pleasantville participants. And so it is critical. And so we do what we can to meet it. But right now, it's definitely one thing that's extremely upside down in terms of cost and recovery.
In addition to your rent, what is the situation for food concept with insurance? I keep hearing that insurance rates are going to be going through the roof. And I've heard about providers in Southern California that their insurance companies are no longer going to insure them. And I just wonder what Rubicon's experience is in these lines, because I would expect it to be not unlike what's going on with rent, and maybe even worse.
Yeah, because so for insurance, we kind of do, finance does this kind of cost splitting calculation, right? Where they kind of cut it across contracts and then just do a nominal demand, against each contract. So I don't know exactly what our true costs are on insurance and what that difference is. I know that allocation hasn't really moved much, right? So if it has gone up, and then we, had to cover that. But I will say in terms of, I know you were talking about general liability insurance, but what insurance that we have seen go through the roof is healthcare, right? So this year alone, Kaiser piece is going up 19%, I think, right, in terms of cost. And of course, we try not to pass those on to the staff, because that becomes a true reduction in what they take home, right, and in compensation. And so when you see these fluctuations, again, it just kind of puts more pressure on the organization to try to find those balances and do what we can. It's definitely becoming much more difficult. I've only been there 3 years, but it seems like it's gotten harder and harder each year to make the numbers work. But at the end of the day, I mean, we can figure out those things, but I think it's also it's also important for our partners, those who are providing for services, to know the true value of doing this work, right? And what it really costs.
One last question before we move on for the sake of time. So I hear two things. I hear from an organization standpoint, there are some areas over there, additional funding to help support. And then I had, our last meeting, I made a point to ask again. Because we were talking about deployment and Charles brought up some good things and we talked about pilots and you mentioned in Alameda County, there's I don't want to say everyone, there's a pilot going on right now with Rubicon, on how to give individuals additional funding. And you guys covered a lot and great, amazing work as well as RSC. So just wondering, like, because one of our recommendations around pre-release as well as the employment, is there any other areas outside that you may see that additional funding can be used to help? Maybe like a pilot or a pre-release that can actually help you all with your participants and increasing the participant rate. That's a part question.
You know, I mean, I think, you know, so after I think the program we were talking about guaranteed income, we have a project in Alameda County, we were doing that. And, you know, I'm all for getting pockets, right? Like at the end of the day, right? Like that gives them reason to be there, right? We're not talking about it's literally like this life changing, but it's not this, you know, $200 here and a few $100 there, right? It's enough to kind of do what they need to do. You know, we have a pretty substantial. That was I think we're 1,500 or 1,800 a month, 1,500 maybe a month, for 1,500 for 18 months. That's what it is. So, you know, it's a long time and it adds up. The truth is, you know, 1,500 in the area.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Right. On the scheme of things. And so definitely so I'm all for getting money in people's pockets, right? And then to, you know, trying to help them identify how they, most of the time, I mean, this is the thing that we learn. When people have the ability to, they can usually figure out how to solve their problem. Like, you know, people need to come in and tell somebody this is what you need to do. They might need support and be part of a community and to kind of, you know, to be sure that they continue to engage, to get lifted up when you're in those down spots and those things that the community does, right? But the truth of the matter is most of the time people just don't have the means, right? They don't have the means. And so if you provide them the means and the support, folks will usually kind of figure it out, right? And you know, Tiffany can tell you, you know, when the person walks in the door of the RSC, in 10 minutes, you can tell if that person's serious or not, right? You still gonna work with them because you're hoping that they might not have came in serious, right? But you can get them to that point, and it might not be that time. It might be the third time down the road, right? But you know, we want to try to be there for that. And so, just in terms of your question, in terms of what are the you know, other things that can be done. Again, I just say trying to get, you know, see about you know, supporting our nonprofits out there, making sure that we're, you know, not on this kind of deficit mindset. But it's hard for a nonprofit is trying to barely meet the budget, and then the people who are funding them are sitting with $20 million in their pocket, right? Like that's kind of so. And then I'm just talking about Rubicon, but I'm talking about the entire landscape to make sure that they're around. They play an important role. And then also they are community generally, right? Like we hire a number of individuals, just hired another individual to speak that came through our program, right? I think that those make some of the best employees, and we try to walk in and talk, right? At Rubicon. So that's what I'd say, you know, see what you can to get money to individuals, big things housing, right? I don't even need to say that. I think that folks know that, and so you can figure out ways to be creative around that, and then find a way to support the nonprofits as best we can.
Really great. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming back today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think we're going to move forward to the public defender's office.
Hello, everybody. Again, good morning. Blanca Hernandez, the Deputy Public Defender, and have been for 8 years now head of our Martinez office. And I helped launch the early representation program in 2016, which deals primarily with misdemeanors, AB 109, for example, eligible misdemeanors, and provide attorney representation to those people at the early end prior to charges being filed, prior to their arraignment. And in 2020, we got very fortunate funding from the state to create the Holistic Intervention Partnership, which is an offshoot from the Early Representation Program. It's funded to service about 300 people per year. And so that's obviously a very, very small portion of the public defender clientele. To give you an idea, the Early Representation Program usually works with 10,000 clients per year. So HIP is what we call it, and that's actually meant for to service really the highest needs individuals that are circling through our criminal legal system. And what I just want to say that I've observed in my time, both as a public defender and specifically in HIP, is that lack of housing is really where it's at as far as causing low-level crime. I can speak predominantly to misdemeanors, because that's primarily where I've been focusing, but it is, homelessness is really the cause of a lot of low-level crimes, theft, right? That's going to come from those situations. Trespassing charges, those come from those situations. Drunk in public, if you can believe it, these people are still getting arrested for being drunk in public or stealing shopping carts. Like, these are individuals that are impacted in our society and are taking up a lot of money in our criminal legal system. My opinion, the money is better spent in having housing programs. And I'm not talking about like long-term permanent housing. In the HIP program, we have pools of money that are set aside for rapid housing, hotel stays, getting people to court and kind of stabilizing them as they're getting immediately released from custody after they've been arraigned, for example. So this isn't like post-release after prison. We're talking about the early stages. The second pool of money is for what we call long-term housing, but it really is move-in costs, deposits, and the first or maybe the second month's rent, depending on the circumstances. And then, of course, we come with navigators who are of course trying to get them off of the HIP funding to be able to fund their rent or their other housing long term, and that includes tons of referrals to Rubicon and RSC, as I'm sure you guys know. So all of this is a long way of saying that if we are to prioritize funding, I cannot speak for the public defender's office, but from my personal perspective, I think housing is the right direction. I will say that I would strongly recommend the funding go directly to direct services. Like, if there is a way to allocate the vast majority to as pass-through funding to not go through H3 entirely. All I love the H3, but I really would love the money to go directly to the housing providers that we may work with for HIP. Shout out to Hope Solutions. They're wonderful. And in contrast, obviously behavioral health is, wow, a huge, if not the biggest cause of criminal activity and of law enforcement contact in Contra Costa, in my opinion. And I think the difference is that we're not really hearing of people getting rejected from behavioral health. There, in my opinion, and this could be wrong, I'm just one person, but I'm not seeing a dearth of mental health services to accessibility as I am housing. I think the issues with mental health and behavioral health is keeping patients engaged, right? Keeping them coming back, keeping them medicated. But it's not about accessibility in terms of doctors or offices. The clients that I have been able to make direct referrals to behavioral health are usually seen right away. And that is not our experience with housing. Let me make sure that I'm getting everything from my notes here. And then I think that, again, I'm only speaking for HIP, and we have a lot of bigger needs at the public defender's office that I'm happy to speak about. I don't want to be the rest of the PA or PD's office, but, as we do provide predominantly, if not only legal services, our needs are only staff-based, more attorneys, more legal assistants, more social workers, all of that. So I'll just give a little sentence plug for that. And other than that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you for your time and thank you for coming back this month. One quick question on your response to rapid rehousing. Are you doing that through the public defender's office or is that through Hope Solutions or another partner that you're referring people to?
So the reason that we operate out of the public defender's office is because we're the people that are having the most contact with these impacted individuals, right? Whether they like it or not, they're coming through our jails, they're meeting with us, right? And so we are that initial point of contact where we do a complete intake. And then we will refer that person directly to Hope Solutions, who's the actual housing, right? They're the ones that that work with landlords and hotels and negotiate rents and all that stuff. And we found that because they are willing to like come to court and come to the jails, do that warm handoff, that's the best way that partnership works.
Thank you for the clarification.
So more of a comment than a question. I'm always glad to hear about this program, HIP, and I'm going to be doing my ambassador meeting tomorrow with Supervisor Anderson, who already supports it, but I want to keep that momentum going in any conversations that I have. And I think the thing to keeping all in place on reality, law enforcement responds to these rapidly evolving situations that involve people that are in crisis. And if we can, at that point in time, intervene, we're going to be far ahead of a system that ignores people until a court date can occur. So I think your program is excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think particularly in Contra Costa, where we really see these honestly unprecedented and rare delays between an incident and the person's first court date, Central County 10-month delay. In East and West, it's about the same, a little worse in East, a little better in West. That is a huge period of lost opportunity to intervene in people's lives. Like a lot of the time, these low-level cases will resolve for a rehabilitative program or diversion or something that like we could have dealt with at the time it happened when the person was arrested and not when they've eventually made it into the criminal legal system a year later. So I appreciate you saying that. We are always looking for more law enforcement partners, as well as just generally support for these kind of programs.
Anyone else from CAB members?
So my notes. So I did hear you talk about, I wrote a few things down here. Thank you for bringing up the public defender's office. I know you guys do a lot of great work as well as a social worker and trying to connect everyone to services when they get released. I'm also a big advocate for this program. When I heard about it, I've been excited since. So I do agree that housing is a major need. Is there any outside of that, well, knowing what our recommendations are around housing, thank you for bringing up the part in reference to H3. In reference to the pre-release services, I know you talked a little bit about the process on how you all are doing that in reference to someone going in. Do you see any other areas where you think that the one-time funding could help? If it's this program and or just the public defenders at all to do better?
Well, I mean, I think you've hit it with either behavioral health or housing. I think that those are the largest contributors to, well, low level and high level crime. I'm not sure I can say that there's anything more important. Of course, we want more civil legal aid, we want more employment support, we want access to civil attorneys in family court and stuff like that. But to be honest, like you're not going to get anywhere if the person is unstable, both on the streets and in their room.
Thank you.
Any quick questions or comments?
Does the program, does that also provide legal aid services for individuals who may need additional support in the application for disability? If they have a strong behavioral health condition, that we have separate additional support. My understanding is these kinds of applications are very often regularly deny it until the lawyer is charged or something like that. I just wondered if your program supports that too.
So our civil legal services come from Rubicon. They are one of our HIP partners. The majority of the referrals for HIP, for civil legal services revolve around getting driver's license and family law matters, restraining orders, child custody. I have not been in a situation in which we have had a civil attorney help someone getting public benefits, and it's gonna be a huge need. I'm glad that you brought that up. Whether we can work it into our existing framework, let's talk about today, or something that we can work, you know, even within the agencies of how to make things clearer, more accessible, language accessible. The same way that we have like family law facilitators in family court, I would hope there could be some public benefits facilitators. But I'm just spitballing ideas. But yeah, good point. We don't provide the answer.
All right, well, thank you both again for coming back and sharing your experiences with all of us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. I have a comment. It's kind of interesting here. I tried to take notes and I don't type very well. So, and what a theme here. God darn it. Here we are, housing, housing, housing. And then you can call it mental health, you can call it behavioral health. I don't care what you call it. Hey, we had a member said, if your head's not right, nothing else is going to work. So you see that theme. I like the theme that you have, which is in the literature about wages, or not wages, but stipends. Stay away from wages. That'll head people in a different direction. But a stipend during training. And then we go back to the social workers and the attorneys. And there's something that we haven't touched upon is how do we figure out bringing in, recruiting more social workers, clinicians, etc., as well naturally as the attorneys. But boy, maybe that's something we need to take a look at, see what programs are out there. What is there any research? Is there anything that's done or being done somewhere else? And maybe we can ask at this little AB 109 summit, what are you doing in certain areas? So this has been very valuable. Those are just kind of my comments here, and thank both of you, because that was important.
Happy to be here.
I think we're on to the next agenda item.
Oh, you're that easy, huh?
Yes.
Okay, well, hey, again, thank you. Yeah, and Nicole and Justin for the work that the two of you have done in bringing this together, and our two guests, thank you very much. Let's move now to item number 5. This is the presentation on our CAB provider survey. Hopefully our fellow members here have had an opportunity to review the document. It's kind of a long document, I must admit, but by George, if you went through that, I went through it before dinner and then after dinner to get through everything. That's one heck of a document that you're going to put together, you and Christina. So hey, I just wanted to make sure that everybody, if you haven't had a chance to read it, you've got to read it page by page. And I would suggest reading the summary first and then don't stop there. Because if you just read that summary part, you're going to say, oh God, I see what they mean. Go to the meat. And I'm a lot older than the rest of you. And there was an old saying from Wendy's restaurant, where's the beef? Well, the beef is in the second part. So go to that doggone second part and you're going to see the beef for all of the nice information at the beginning. So Christina, go for it.
Thanks, Crawford. Before I dive in, Denise, Patrice, is there anything you wanted to say about the survey before I get into the beef, as Crawford mentioned?
No, I don't think, no, you go.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. One moment here. Alrighty. Does everybody see that presentation?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Jackson, and I'm a planner evaluator here in the ORJ. I'm really excited to be here with you all this morning to share the findings from the most recent CAB Programs and Services Subcommittee's AB 109 Partners and Providers Survey for fiscal year 2022-2023. You know, I think that this, the conversation we just had before this is a really nice segue and ties in beautifully to much of the information I'm going to provide here. And there'll be a lot of overlapping themes, a lot of overlapping comments. So I think that was really a great almost introduction to a lot of the meat we'll be getting into shortly here. So the goal for this conversation right now is to cover the purpose and overview of the survey, discuss the overarching themes from each question, touch on some noteworthy comments across all the responses, and then finally, we're going to wrap up with some recommendations for the CAB's consideration. For those interested, and as was just mentioned, also included in today's agenda packet is a more detailed survey report. It's a report brief, but it's not super brief, but inside of that and at the end of the report includes all the raw survey responses if you're interested in getting into individual level responses. So with that said, I've got a lot of information to share. Let's dive right in. So first, a quick overview of the survey itself. In May, the ORJ distributed a 14-question survey that was approved by the Programs and Services Subcommittee to contacts from all county agencies and CBOs funded by AB 109 Public Safety Realignment Revenue. So not unlike the survey that was sent out last year, the intention of the survey is to also better understand goals, challenges, and barriers of each agency and organization that serves the AB 109 population. Ultimately, the results from the survey can be used to inform recommendations that come from CAB. 20 unique partners and providers were sent the survey, some of whom may be present with us here this morning. 8 recipients were CBOs and 12 were county departments and agencies. 18 of those 20 recipients responded to the survey, so we had a really great response rate. And 2 of those recipients provided more than one response. So all said and done, the total amount of survey responses the ORJ received was 20. Here's a breakdown of all of the 20 survey responses by respondent type, which again was either CBO or government agency. As you can see on the pie chart here, 11 responses came from our county partners and agencies and 9 came from CBOs. So overall, we had a pretty even split in terms of the representation of these 2 respondent types, which is great. And now I'm going to present a list of the 18 unique respondent agency names, which are broken up here by respondent type. This year's survey also garnered responses from 4 agencies who didn't participate last year, which is interesting. CBOs this year included Bay Area Legal Aid, Center Force, Health Right, LAO, Men and Women of Purpose, Miss Shirley's, the RSC, and Rubicon. And then on the county agency side, we received responses from AODS, Forensic Mental Health, Office of Ed, Public Defender's Office, the District Attorney's Office, the Reentry Health Conductors and Transitions Clinic Program, H3, the Sheriff's Office, Probation, and the Workforce Development Board. So now we're going to dive deeper into the key findings from the survey, and we're going to start with the region of the county served by AB 109 providers. So this question asks, which region of the county does your agency serve? And on this slide is a map of Contra Costa County. It shows the number of survey respondents whose agencies reported serving each of the identified regions, including West, Central, East, Far East, and South Central. Each number that you see here on the map represents the total number of survey respondents that reported serving each of the city included in that respective region. The darker the shade of blue, the more survey respondents who reported serving that region. So for example, 18 or 90% of all survey respondents reported that they provide services and resources in the area of West County, which also has the darkest shade of blue on the map. In comparison, in South Central County, 10 or 50% of the respondents indicated that their agency or organization serves this area. 13 survey respondents reported their agency provides services in Far East County, which includes cities such as Brentwood, Oakley, and Discovery Bay. We'll move on to the next question, which asked, what is the most critical area of need for individuals returning to their communities? So for this question, survey respondents were presented an extensive list of critical areas of need and were asked to select up to 3 choices. On this visual here is the sum of the selected areas of need reported by providers across all the survey responses. So, as we can see, by far, housing continues to be the most urgent, critical area of need for individuals, as reported by the partners and providers. Substance use treatment, employment, mental health, and pro-social and community supports were also mentioned a good number of times across the responses, closely followed by income and public benefits. It's also worth noting that there was one survey respondent who indicated other, and when prompted to fill in a response for that other category, their answer was healthcare as a critical area of need. Okay, so now we'll move on to the narrative style questions. But before I do so, I want to provide a quick note on the methodology so it's clear on how the narrative response data were analyzed. As we did last year to determine the key themes across all the narrative responses, 2 of us in the ORJ independently reviewed and coded the survey responses, really looking for noticeable patterns across the comments. And then we met together to negotiate what those final overarching themes are that I'll present shortly. By doing this first independently and then together, we achieve what is called inter-rater reliability. And this is done to essentially prevent any personal biases from interfering with the analysis of the survey responses. It's also worth noting briefly that a couple of the questions we received this year actually received a high number of ambiguous responses, which to us suggested that perhaps these particular questions may not have been interpreted in the same way amongst all the survey respondents. So summarized findings related to these certain ambiguous responses have been omitted from this particular presentation. However, the attached report brief explains this in a bit more detail. And again, in the appendix, all the raw responses to all questions are there for your access. Okay, so overall, those key themes I just discussed that emerged from the narrative questions surrounded needs for more housing, behavioral health services, as well as program capacity issues and a notable lack of communication and coordination amongst service providers. These particular themes appeared consistently across most of the responses, and we'll dig into that a little bit more now. Beginning with this question, what is the greatest challenge your program or programs are facing? The most frequently reported program challenges mentioned include, in this order, the lack of affordable housing for clients, funding and capacity issues, and challenges related to partner collaboration. So starting with housing, in addition to the scarcity of affordable housing, a lack of stable housing options specific to the needs of individuals with behavioral health, which includes both substance use and mental health struggles, was also noted across the survey responses to this question. One respondent described the need for flexible funding to respond to real-time events that individuals returning to the community experience, such as, and I think this was mentioned earlier, the immediate need for a hotel voucher for that same night, for example. Respondents also stated that increased coordination amongst providers would reduce and observe duplication of efforts. The next survey question said, in what ways or asked in what ways or areas in what areas or ways do you see your program or programs expanding in the near future? So for this question, the most frequently reported area for program expansion was, again, no surprise, housing. Housing was mentioned twice as often as any other area across the responses. However, after housing, respondents also made notes of hopes for future expansion in the areas of behavioral health, funding and capacity, partner collaboration, pre-release planning, and pro-social supports. These areas were each mentioned the same number of times, which is why they're presented on the same level on this slide. Related to these themes were comments about expanding connections for individuals in custody to resources such as healthcare, establishing a continuity of services after release for those utilizing behavioral health services, and then reestablishing peer mentorship programs, which I will dive into a little bit more deeply later on in this presentation. Okay. Then the survey asked respondents to please describe any barriers that your agency experiences, specifically when seeking to reach program goals and objectives. Then, what supports could help your agency reach those goals and objectives. The primary barrier identified by providers surrounded partner collaboration, and this was followed by housing and then behavioral health in this order. For partner collaboration barriers, respondents noted examples such as lack of communication and coordination, again, duplication of services, and just a general lack of knowledge or awareness about existing services. For housing, once again, the lack of affordable options and housing options specific to individual needs in the county were stated. And then for behavioral health, barriers included lack of facilities, lack of clinicians, and as well as a lack of continuity of service delivery, both pre and post release. Some supports that were mentioned in the responses that could help address these barriers were increasing warm handoffs when making referrals between providers, increasing stable housing options that also provide substance use and mental health wraparound services, and increasing efforts surrounding recruitment of behavioral health clinicians and an increased emphasis of in-custody behavioral health treatment services. And then we'll move on to the last narrative question of the survey, which asked, what programs and services would you suggest that we consider for future development or funding in your area? Overall, housing and behavioral health services were the most frequently reported program and service areas that respondents really believe should be considered for future funding. Although it wasn't mentioned as frequently across the survey responses, for this question, employment was, however, appeared and emerged as a key theme, with several respondents hoping to see increases in funding for employment and vocational training services and programs. So now we're going to move on to some noteworthy comments. There were several responses and comments across all the survey questions that, in our opinion, really stood out as meaningful insights that had the potential to be further expanded upon, or we consider were ideas worth exploring further. And we believe that these comments were of note. And they included connecting individuals to SSI, ID cards and other benefits while still in custody, establishing a team of clinical social workers to work with individuals with behavioral health needs, again, while in custody, but at release and through reentry. Creating a formal referral system, which would be required by all county reentry providers that provides a continuity of care for those reentering the community with significant behavioral health and healthcare needs. And then providing other family-related services such as family or marital counseling, father and children parenting classes, or mediation services for positive family relationships and communication. So with that in mind, and given all the feedback from the survey, the ORJ then deliberated internally to offer the following recommended next steps for consideration. The first here is building upon or replicating existing flexible funding models to expand housing assistance for other non-AB 109 justice impacted individuals. So flexible funding models such as the existing Housing Security Fund or the newly established Housing Trust Fund, which is primarily funded through Measure X tax revenues, would allow for provider access to an array of housing assistance, such as, again, obtaining hotel vouchers or resources to cover past due rents that could really help stabilize a justice impacted individual or family. Expanding existing flexible housing funds should include targeted resources specifically tailored to the reentry community. And this could also include free trial clients, individuals under court probation, parolees, and then family members also impacted by the justice system. The second recommendation is to develop justice population-focused permanent supportive housing services for individuals living with disabilities, including serious behavioral health conditions. From this survey, we know it is clear that this is a critical need. An expansion of permanent supportive housing as an option for those living with disabilities and who have a history of criminal justice system involvement will provide long-term care to this subpopulation. And ultimately, this can help reduce impacts upon other limited resources across the other systems of care in our county. The third recommendation is to build upon or expand existing use of peer support specialists with lived experiences. So most CBO providers do make intentional efforts to hire staff with lived experiences across a wide array of reentry service areas. But more behavioral health supports provided by those with lived experiences as consumers of behavioral health programs and services, and those with justice system involvement continues to be a key element of making strong behavioral health connections. And this is a point that was raised many times in this survey. However, currently the county's forensic mental health unit does have a model of using community support workers that serve individuals with mental health challenges. And the Behavioral Health Services Division does work in partnership with Contra Costa Contra Costa College to train former consumers of behavioral health services to become peer support specialists. Additionally, the Behavioral Health Division's A3, which stands for Anyone, Anywhere, at Any Time, Behavioral Health Crisis Services Initiative, also has a new project underway to convert a county building in Concord to serve as a non-emergency mental and behavioral health facility. And within this facility will be the Peer Resilience Center, a place where individuals can receive support from trained staff members with lived experience in navigating their path to wellness. So these are just a few examples of existing models within our county that can be either enhanced or expanded upon to offer opportunities for establishing justice impacted peer support specialists who also have behavioral health lived experience to assist others navigating these systems of care. The next recommendation here is to develop and adopt system-wide operating guidelines to better integrate a coordinated approach to providing pre-release and post-release services across providers and partners. And this recommendation is really a response to the feedback regarding duplication of services and a lack of coordination or communication between providers. It is apparent that there is a need for developing a documentation process in partnership with these impacted agencies that can serve as guidance for both county departments and contracted CBO providers on effective ways to exchange information on and coordinate services regarding mutual shared clients. And this can set the stage for improving transitions from in-custody services to connections with the post-release services and programs, and ongoing aftercare as well. And lastly, the last recommendation here is to enhance partner collaborations through opportunities for ongoing learning, capacity building, technical assistance, and shared tools and communications. So once more, this recommendation is in response to the survey feedback regarding improving partners' coordination and collaboration. So while there are currently spaces for ongoing partner convenings, such as the recent ORJ hosted AB 109 Partner Providers meeting that a few CAB members here actually were able to attend themselves. There's also the probation-led AB 109 case conferences. There's the SAFE database tool platform that allows for service coordination. However, it's still clear that providers are requesting improvements in workflows across the system. So the Office of Reentry and Justice, the ORJ, is committed to enhancing this collaboration through a number of ways. And this can include supporting the establishment of communities of practice to offer ongoing learning opportunities and trainings, supporting community-led partner convenings or conferences offered by our contracted CBOs, supporting the development of work groups, operational work groups to improve workflows and communications, going back to safe, enhancing data system features, and potentially leveraging other opportunities to expand the number of providers that can utilize this and share information on clients. And finally, updating the reentry strategic plan and developing a communications campaign to continue to highlight the wide array of services and resources and great work throughout this county for our justice system populations. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I just want to thank you all so much for the opportunity to present this information, and just a big shout out to the CAB Programs and Services Subcommittee for all your efforts on this year's survey. Thank you all so much.
Are there any questions for Christina?
I have a question. Christina, has all of the CCP and the Board of Supervisors had a chance to see this report yet?
That is a great question. This is the first time we've presented this information. You are the first audience. You know, the agenda packet was posted publicly, but I don't think there has been any intentional efforts to disseminate it to the CCP just yet. This is the first time we've had a scheduled presentation, to my knowledge, and I don't think any other communications have occurred just yet.
As I noted earlier, I have my ambassador meeting tomorrow with Supervisor Anderson, and I wanted to know if she'd had a chance to view this, because I think there's some very important information in your presentation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. To my knowledge, I don't think that any of the supervisors have had a chance to see this.
Yeah, so typically with these survey results, we present them first to CAB, and then the subsequent CCP meeting will do another similar presentation then. But for you guys' process, if you can recall in your planning, this is sort of right on time with the timeline, which is that we develop the receive the survey results, do an analysis, present it to you guys, and then you fold in some of this information into your talking points as you go and meet with as you conduct your ambassador.
Do your thing.
So
do your thing.
so if you wish to take this with you, or you can certainly make a suggestion to them that we're happy to send that information over to them.
I just didn't want to get out in front of you.
No,
But the other side of
this is your information.
Yeah, this is
with you.
would make for a really meaningful
Absolutely.
30 or 40-minute conversation.
And this is exactly what's it's intended.
Yeah, cool.
I just had a comment that one other thing that we know now that this is out, which is fabulous, and Ozzy and Rena, this is great, because now I think I can boogie a little bit and update the script based on the information that's been provided. Yeah. And that's why I tried to take so much care of going through it, really looking at the meat. Now, hopefully over this weekend, I'm sorry I can't get it done for your meeting.
No, but I can certainly synthesize.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then that script will be updated. That'll go to Patrice, and she in turn will send it to everybody. And again, this will just be a guide. Do your thing. But we'll try to lay out some of these and kind of switch now from what our previous recommendations were to maybe enhance, amplify, and get to these things we've done here today. So great job by everybody. Wow. This is good. Any other questions? And hey, thank you again, Ozzy, and for getting those questions.
I just added
I just want to thank the data team.
Oh, yes.
I just want to thank both of you for this robust and definitely robust report.
Well, it was a team effort fully from the standpoint of the entire ORJ, because we had deliberations about the themes that came forward in the responses. We had really deliberations about the comments that were noteworthy, as well as how to shape the recommendations. So thank you, and the whole office really had a role in it. So thank you.
God, you have set the bar just so high. I'm going to really regret my ending my term.
Keep on throwing that out there, don't you?
Always return as a member.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Coming to these meetings.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, thank you. Let's move. Oh,
Else, and
please.
I sent this in email to the team yesterday, and I too am happy with this report. I think it's really meaningful, and it doesn't mean that our prior reports were not meaningful. But what I think is what we have here is you guys as a tab are so engaged and so doing such fantastic work. We also have going on other conversations about how to use these excess funds. We have Measure X funding. So everybody is thinking about this in a way that has allowed us to get better results from our survey and also to shape it in a stronger way. And so it's not just Nora J who's created this. What I'm saying is you guys have had work too. So thank you. I think the community can really benefit from this.
Yeah, what they call it our triad here. We gotta be careful of these three ladies here. The triad, they're dangerous. You know, one other thing you might want to just briefly cover, because I know we have time constraints here. You've got another survey that you're working on of individuals. Would you comment on that, please, Ozzy? Of those that were previously incarcerated or are preparing to be, or coming back home?
Well,
Would you comment, please?
absolutely. Thank you for that segue. Definitely. Our subcommittee has been tirelessly working on an in-custody survey, actually being able to format it and articulate it in a manner that will be receptive. We also have had distribution of the survey, which we're kind of giving the report, but we've had, you know, the survey is out, it's been distributed, and we're just kind of waiting for it to be collected. We're on the timeline. I think August the 14th. I have some notes, but and I'll give the information later as we do a report out.
Thank you. And we're going to keep you busy again.
So
Great, great. Again, oh, yes, Patrice.
the one additional comment I wanted to emphasize about at least the provider survey. Forgive me, Christina, if you mentioned this already, but some of the things, as you know, were sort of repeats from last year. Some of the responses were very similar to what we saw last year. And as we were looking over the responses internally, what we did notice that even though there are similar things as before, there were some specific nuances in the responses that that helped us pull out, okay, what is the essence of what folks are really uplifting? There are some really significant challenges within those respective things. So we hope that at least through the recommendations, and even as you take time to review, because we do give you the raw responses at the end, you'll see some of those pieces come to light. And it's also helped us to review how we want to shape the survey even for future years, to ensure that we have more, what's the right word for it? Less vague. What's the opposite of vague? Clarity or clear responses, like right responses.
Comprehensive.
And so, you know, you notice that maybe some of the, maybe in the way that some of the questions were phrased, might have been a little bit too open-ended or what have you. So we'll certainly do our best to improve the survey as it's structured for the future, so we can get more clear responses back to you guys. But overall, I agree with all that was stated. This one was certainly much more robust than last year, and hopefully it'll be a strong tool for you guys this work at the end of the year.
I just want to add, great work. Also have notes, but I'll save it for my report out. I'm very excited about what was presented today, because it's going to help me adjust it. And I really like the way that it's planned out and framed out, and how you guys broke down the information, because it actually ties into what our goals are. So I'll go into more detail when we get to that part, but it's a great job. Thank you for it.
Oh,
Time.
yeah. Great job, great. Okay, can we move to the next agenda item? Let's, oh, wait a minute, we want to make sure we go slow. Go around the room. Okay, can we move to the next agenda item, which is, and if you could put this on the screen, Garyana, we want to discuss the ambassador program updates. Now, this is just, this isn't going to take a lot of time, hopefully. But what we wanted to share here is, this is where we stand on who's doing what and where, and you are in the process of determining when. Now, I thought it was key after looking at this sheet is to call out and to really thank, and I'm going to mention your names because you'll notice our board, the complement of our board is not even 12, it's not 15, we're down to 10. And that means getting these meetings, it is gonna be difficult. However, because this board is so doggone good, Nicole, you are doing 5 ambassador meetings, so thank you. Ozzy has stepped up and will do 4 ambassador meetings. Scott will also do 4, and if somebody else slips, he's gonna do 5 and doesn't know it. And Brenda always doing that. Brenda, who is new, has stepped up to do 3. So this is the bar we've set. So for those of you that are new here, be careful because Brenda set the bar. If somebody else slips, Rena, you're on that. Latanya, Justin. So I'm just saying, you didn't, hey, you got your 2, but I'm just saying, look out. So again, these meetings, these are the bedrock as to what we do and who we are. So again, we want to compliment the aforementioned individuals for taking that extra step. And hopefully in future years, those of you that will follow us will also take those extra steps. So thank you. And that's it. Are there any questions or comments? Get your meetings done, get them scheduled. I think everybody's doing a great job. Any other comments?
Deadline to get it done again in September.
Oh, no, yesterday.
I mean, we already started on it.
Well, then get it done.
I got one scheduled out. I got one scheduled out of 5. I got to follow up with the rest.
Well, okay, get it done.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, we are making great progress. All right, can we move to the next agenda item, item number 7? We want to review here our CAB subcommittees and external meetings. And we'll start with, are there any comments from the Board of Supervisors meetings? And again, briefly, yes, please.
Yeah, so very briefly, I'm actually going to do all 3 if you would
Yes.
mind, BOS, CCP, and PPC. As was stated during the announcement on August 1st, the probation department received a check presentation from Congressman Desonier on a $1.18 billion that was awarded through our community, through the federal community funding project to launch a strategies for supporting youth in the community training program. This will allow, this was done in partnership with the Sheriff's Office, where we're able to then train local law enforcement on effective ways of engaging with young people with the ultimate goal of reducing youth arrests countywide. More work will come from that, but just Congressman Desonier, who actually mentioned that he was a former juvenile institution officer here in Contra Costa, which was mind-blowing there. No one, that man has so many hats, or so many tricks in his hat in terms of what he's done in his background. But nonetheless, it was a great honor, and we look forward to bringing that program forward. And CCP has not yet finalized its scheduled meeting, but you can anticipate it will be
early September. Ideally, we'll have our 2 cab applicants who will be approved. There will likely be, as I mentioned earlier, presentation of the provider survey. There may very well be a full year, potentially, financial reporting of AB-109 funds, as we gear up for budget discussions that will take place in November. PPC meeting, the only major piece I'll share here is that there was a scheduled racial justice oversight body update that, as well as a discussion of the oversight body's public statement around local policing and reducing racial disparities within local policing. Unfortunately, due to some other agenda items in our fight meeting, that update did not happen. So it's been referred over to the equity committee for a full presentation, and that will take place on August 21st at 10:30 a.m. So any and all of you are encouraged to attend to check out that update. And that's it.
Thank you very much. You got all 3 of them for us. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
I'm sure there were more with BLS, but I got
You had more often. Yeah, okay.
usually a lot.
All right. Okay, I'll cover the outreach and community engagement subcommittee. We don't have a chair of that committee, so I'll just try to pop in at their meetings so we keep the momentum going. And let me just cover 3 of the highlights. The first item we should share, they were not able to have a meeting. We couldn't get quorum, doggone it, for July. So I'll just cover some of the important items in June. We interviewed Rena Hurley and she was presented to CAB, outstanding lady. She's a beautician. She should be a real valued addition to CAB if she's approved. We reviewed the ambassador assignments and you saw that sheet up there. We had to do a little jiggling around and moving around, but by George, we did it. And again, thanks to everybody. And then we discussed that ambassador guide, and part of our conversation was, gee, we need these recommendations. We need these recommendations. Yeah, the survey. We're all saying, hey, we're ready to go. Thank you again. We are ready to go. And believe it or not, we finalized the PowerPoint. And we have to go back. I go back to my mentor, Michael Pitts, who put this beautiful PowerPoint together. And then we chopped it, moved it, but then we came back to the original, chopped it, moved it, but we're right there. And I may just suggest next year, look, don't waste 3 or 4 meetings doing the doggone PowerPoint. You've got one, move with it and move on.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, and we'll call it the Michael Pitts PowerPoint. We're done. And that's the report from OCEC. Could we go to the next committee report, which I believe would be policy and budget on our agenda?
So I'm going to, let me go.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to cover our June as well as our July. So some of the meeting highlights from June was we had a presentation from Blanca Hernandez in reference to HIP. We discussed the CAB policy and budget PowerPoint, which was presented for CAB. Will be invited our partners to come in and talk about their programs related to the AB-109 recommendations for the access funds. And we discussed questions and scheduling for our agency to meet at the CAB general meeting, which was a success, as we can see. And we also reviewed our work plan, which is done. We just had to review one item in reference to our action item for programs and services. For July, we had a discussion on the results from that first CAB presentation. We kind of talked about what was the individuals that were able to present, which was H3 and behavioral health. We reviewed the changes to our work plan. We discussed CAB recommendations and AB-109 excess funds. We discussed and reviewed programs and services survey. So we kind of took a look at what was pending at that time. We are still discussed some committee date changes. There may be some changes to when our actual meetings will be held. And then a discussion of just and impact services within Contra Costa County. So We have a few next steps. I will just kind of glance over July, what those next steps were. We did do those at, excuse me, June, we did do those in July, but for June, our next steps were a discussion and review, of course, of the CAB recommendations, complete policy and budget county provides presentation at full CAB, approve changes to our work plan, discussion regarding CAB committee and confirmation on next CCP meeting. So in July, we viewed our CAB recommendation to discuss if there should be any revision made or add funds based on the outline recommendations for the AB 19 excess funds. And I will elaborate on that a little bit more under our action items. We also reviewed a map of adjusted impact for ORJ. We had a quick discussion on H3 PowerPoint for housing, a discussion regarding CAB committee changes, the date and the time, and a confirmation of the CCP. So action item for June, which is already covered, was the invitation to our providers, which was successful. So thank you all for coming back. And in July, and I apologize for the error, that actually goes up to our actually part of the discussion for July, which was to summarize the information for our meeting. It's not an action item for full CAB, so apologize for that. That's one of our actions for our next meeting. An action item for July, what we hope to do at our next meeting is, and I'm glad that the survey results is actually perfect timing, is our goal is to go back and review our current AB 109 recommendations. Initially, since we have those recommendations for the excess fund, we want to kind of take a look at and see if we want to change the wording or the verbiage to make sure the lines with that, because we have those additions that we're adding to it, which is the pre-release as well as the work groups. But now that we have the surveys, I'm really glad with the results, everything still aligns, right? So it's really taking a look at that. So what we're hoping to do is really look at the recommendation, decide if we want to change it, add some words to change the verbiage of it. We also want to look at the additional recommendations that we haven't reviewed in a while and kind of see if they're still important. So hopefully me and Justin can come back at our next September meeting with the updated recommendations to get a vote from full CAB and your feedback on those. So that is our next action item. That's it.
Thank you. Wonderful. And again, can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Keep it up. Okay, now we've got to kind of bring this to it's not to a conclusion. I was thinking because it's got our trio here again. Okay, Ozzy, what did you do to us this time now? Your group, come on, it's your turn. Program service.
Okay, well, thank you. We're gonna do both June and July together. First of all, in June, we finalized and approved the 2023 program services questions for in-custody participants. We also discussed questions for our community-based organization site visits, which are in progress as we speak. The next steps for our June meeting, which was for July, was to contact CBOs to schedule site visits and report back dates. Also, the next step was to finalize CBO site visit questions and to also discuss future community-based organization presentations. So for July, we discussed next steps for the in-custody survey, circulation, and timelines. Once formatted to a one-page, two-sided copy, it will be given to Jody S. Jody's within our, she's here, no listening. And for distribution by interns to all three facilities. And we actually do have a copy of the survey. Jody dropped that. So this is the survey. I want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to take a look at it. And the start date for distribution is August the 7th. And what will happen is ORJ will scan the copies by Monday, August the 14th. And we'll have more information to report out after the 14th. We also discussed the August 10th, which is today, the provider survey presentation, which we had no idea how it was going to it was just something that was really a very, very It was robust, but it was very informative. It was some items there that caused us to think a little bit. It was more in depth. And really, we appreciated the process and being a part of that. And knowing that the bar has been raised, knowing that moving forward, you know, we have much more work to do. And I will be coming back occasionally to check in. Anyway, we also had a discussion around CBO provider site visits. And some of the feedback. I'd actually had a visit with Health Right 360, and we talked about, we do have a list of questions. And one of the things to take away from that visit was the question was asked, what were your shortfalls in consideration of, you know, transitioning back into a full course operation after COVID? And what were some of the things that you were needed? Well, first of all, they never took a break. Okay, they were still functioning right on through COVID. And one of the things that I learned was facility and how it was an office based and everyone was in the field. So, and then what really stood out for me was what would be really needed. And it was a thing that if it were a perfect world, they would like to have excess funding. So that if those things that came up at the spur of the moment, an example would be, suppose one of the clients needed to pay for a carpenter license in order to, you know, plug into the union, to be able to have funds to do that. Or maybe if there was some other emergency incident that would come up, to have the funds, that's something that's not incorporated within the regular fund. So too much time on that. Anyway, we also had Ms. Courtney Davis from RDA, who was also in our, she's still?
No, she's not on there.
She's not on today, and their organization.
Yeah, so RDA is Resource Development Associates. They're a consulting group that's partnering with Contra Costa Health Services. They're facilitating consumer feedback efforts as they are rolling out the CalAIM initiative.
And they were very interested in our survey and how the survey will also, you know, coincide with the work that they're doing. And we continued our discussion on future future CBO presentations. And our next step would be include ORJ will be sending emails out to our CBO sites to visit for scheduling, and also emails for CBO providers regarding presentation schedules. Is there any additional information that we need?
I have a question.
Question?
You, for the in custody, you said is, the deadline is August 14th, and then it's going to be sent over to RJ to process. You know when you'll have the results from the in custody survey?
Yeah, so we don't know yet until we see how many responses, because this is going out to all 3 facilities. So we could get anything back anywhere from 10, 20, 50 to 200, you know, we just don't know. So I think once we get that back, then that will help us dictate a timeline, because we have to transfer basically, as you saw, they have to fill it out on paper, so they transfer the information on electronic format and coding and analysis and all of that stuff. So we can certainly at least provide you guys an update with how many responses we received, and let you know from there how much time it takes us to provide results.
And then last question, when that information that you provided regarding Health Right 360 is actually very helpful, are you going to do a summary after you visit all of the sites? How one of their asks was additional funding for emergency. Like, that's good information to what their need is.
That's a good suggestion. We'll discuss that. I'm sure that we will collectively do a report out from the entire subcommittee. It's forthcoming.
Okay. That's all I had.
Sure. I'm not usual.
Thank you.
And Arena, is there anything on the Council of Homelessness?
I actually missed the last
Share.
meeting. Or, you want to
Share. They're both on there. You want to?
Oh, there, okay.
I could do, listen, I can read the whole thing, no man.
Thank you.
Me and Rena kind of tagged, team this. I can put it together. I did the August one. We might do it together. You want to cover July and I do August, or? Doesn't matter to me. I just read through the whole.
Well, no, just give us bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some key highlights. It was an amazing call. So some key highlights for July was a discussion regarding the continuum of care notice of funding opportunity update. They discussed the pig count update, and lived experience of homeless and peer support. In August, they had a really robust conversation. There was a lot of information that I was able to collect. They continue to talk about the continuum of care notice of funding opportunity. They discussed the regular COC notice of funding, the NOFO. They also they reviewed a few funding updates in reference to the California State Budget Review, as well as some contracts and RFPs. They also reviewed the point in time count. They talked about the story map. Really exciting work that they've done in reference to creating a website. So it was beautiful about the point in time count. They talked about the increase between 2022 and 2023. There are some more insightful bullet points that you guys can read in the agenda. I'm gonna kind of go through it through the time. The next section they talked about, they reviewed, discussed highlights of the 2022 annual report, which, a summary of the COC activities and outcome. They reviewed a discussion on expansion of H3, was really exciting. They had great conversations about some changes around the Concord shelter, the expansions they have there. It's now open 7 days a week. The one center now has expanded, as well as CORE has weekend daytime hours from 8 a.m. to midnight. So that was, as we mentioned, housing. So it was really nice to see that the changes there. They talked about the new lived experience I can't even talk today. The new experience board that's taking applications, which is due on August 11. Anyone with current or past experience of homeless can apply to that. And then another great discussion they had was around their new rapid exit program model and service project. So if you missed that meeting and you're interested in really knowing what's going on, I would recommend to go back and listen and watch. It was a lot of great information I tried to capture in a small document, but definitely go back and listen and take a look at that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I guess we're moving. Any questions here before we move to the next steps item on our agenda? No questions. Let me make sure it's burning. Okay, we can take a deep breath. And let's talk about next steps, Garyana. Hopefully you can take some notes from us. Go ahead, please start.
I hope this is where I'm supposed to add it. So one of the things that I wanted to bring to full board was about looking at the bylaws in reference to members and the 3-year timeframe that they hear due to the amount of applications that we have. You know that some of us are at our 3-year mark. So maybe taking a look at, and I'm hoping, Patrice, step in if I'm not saying it right, but looking at the way that is written out, or if a CAB member decides that they want to go do a little bit longer than the 3 years, like how, especially if
Can they extend?
Can they extend it? Can they extend that
And
time?
let me share with you, Patrice is already working on that. We
Okay.
are in contact with the county counsel's office. We await a response from him. So stay by the phone.
Okay.
And again, now when we do that, once that comes back, and Ozzy, the two of us have to really boogie on that to get this done,
Yeah.
hopefully for the next one.
So I did actually during this meeting, I just got pinged by county council, telling me to do their changes and their recommended cleanup, because there was a lot of that too.
Okay.
But we could certainly, based on that, we could certainly put that on the agenda for the next CAB meeting.
Excellent. So that'll be one of the items. And what else do we want to follow up for, from the board here first? I'll get to you just 1 second. Anything you'd like to follow up, Justin? I think we want to follow up on ambassador program. Could you put that down? And I think we want to have it. yes, on recommendations, we should, I think, bring that
That's
to
what we brought back to the
more
next CAB meeting.
fruition there. And we may want to, let's put a question mark about the retreat, and I'll cover that here in the closing, maybe just put retreat down there.
And then just revisiting the opportunity for university exploring the documents.
Yeah.
Justin, can you repeat that? Sorry, Justin, can you repeat
Yeah,
that?
we discussed, CAB members having access to historical documents and organizing that in a certain fashion. So revisiting that would be great. And happy to collaborate and help in any way I can. Just reach out.
Okay, those are our next steps. Excuse me, Dante, please.
Yeah, just a quick public comment. Appreciate, one is the service from everybody, like, when you have people who get 3-year mark, that's saying something. That's plenty of time, but, you know, it's not a long time, it's not a short time by any means, right? You know, this historically, you know, that was self-imposed limit by CAB, really, in the interest of, you know, what people don't know is that the first CAB was like 60 applications. So it was so many people that wanted to do it, they wanted to create turnover.
Oh,
Space for folks, right? As that simmered down. Down, you know, definitely some changes where, you know, now it's kind of the cooling off period where you can come back and other things. And so I definitely encourage CAB to kind of revisit that in the current context. But also, you know, realizing too that, you know, there's probably some limit is appropriate just so that, you know, it doesn't get the same idea, right?
Yeah.
That this gets stale, but I think that's been an ongoing issue with CAB, which is why they added on the reserve spaces as well, right? Just because they won't have people in the banks waiting, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, those things would happen, and you really, but a third year is when you really got it down.
Yeah.
And you're gone. Down, and then it's time to go off, and then the next they're kind of creeping up. Oh, I think I got it.
Right.
So all of that just to give context that what you're feeling is real, and there's legacy behind that, and if you make adjustments, I think it's actually appropriate, right? Like you're not, I think, going on some detour. From the original kind of the reason it came about.
Thank you, Dante, for that, what is it, perspective that we don't have. Okay, are there any other observations or comments? Oh, yes.
Yeah, so continuing with next steps,
Yes.
there are quite a few requests for presentation. So we can either determine right now for the next meeting or maybe for our agenda planning meeting. You guys let me know, but for sure, we have Rain Community Development would love to present to you guys on the restorative justice effort. As you know, that's something that CAP had been working on for many, many years. And so finally, that's our Measure X funded project that's now finally getting off the ground. So we wanted to be sure that you guys are kept in the loop on that. There's also a request from Support for Recovery, would like to do their presentation of their outreach to the Spanish-speaking community, and in particular, would like to expand their services in custody. And then also Rich Minds is another group, a collaborative network of mental health, community-based behavioral health, mental health providers that are operating out of West County. They're also interested in providing a presentation to the full CAB on their work and what they do. So you guys are a popular group here, to say the least. No, but really great information coming forward. And so if you'd like to give us direction now, or you want to wait for the agenda planning meeting, I'm happy to do so. Either way, we just wanted to share that.
Maybe due to time constraints, any suggestions? Why don't they come to you and we can finalize it during agenda planning?
Okay.
I'll just do all of them. No, I'm just kidding.
I have another program that also reached out. I was going to bring to for COPE. Reached out and wanted to say COPE.
Okay.
For their for the parenting and just the mental health support that they need. And I told them I would mention that.
Okay.
So do I just have them call you? I don't just give out your number willy-nilly.
I'll see that happens.
Right?
Yeah, so I think, that's fine if you guys, come across different programs and you would like to see them present. You can always give my contact info to them, but just know I'll probably take direction from you guys in terms of the scheduling of that. There's a lot of presentations, programs and services is gonna be doing hearing from this, CBO, representatives, as well. About Rubicon, doing a presentation. Yeah, so just know that I'll need feedback from you all on how to best coordinate all of that. That's quite a few organizational presentations. Yes, yeah.
We were also having some discussions about men and women of purpose.
Yeah. So, yeah, for the full cab or for programs and services? Okay.
Woo.
A lot. I mean, hey, you guys gotta sit through these are your presentations.
That's right. Maybe we need to figure out and just say, well, we'll do this in September, this in October, November, again, hey, we'll.
Yeah,
we'll work.
so maybe through the agenda planning, we can.
Yes.
Because some of them may be better fit for subcommittee versus the full body or, all of that. So I'll work with you guys during that time.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, any other comments prior to adjourning? Let me make sure. Okay, prior to adjourning here. And just want to share one or two quick things. We're in an important stretch of our work calendar. Notice I said work calendar. And please contact the Board of Supervisors and county agencies to confirm your scheduled meetings. You notice I didn't say set, I'm saying to confirm. And we also, just to report back to you, started the preparation for the retreat 2024. We've reached out to a few of you. We've already got some interesting comments back. We thank you, etc. for those comments. And as soon as we get a breath after that mini summit, I'm going to start attacking that. So those of you that may have some ideas, you may get some phone calls from someone, who that could be, pressuring you for comments, etc. And any help would be appreciated. We're going to have this son of a gun done. And by George, I was just talking here with Justin, we may want to try to consider having the elections in December for the new board. Therefore, we hit the ground running, or you do, in 2024 with that January retreat. And we can then involve your new officers, your new leadership team into setting the agenda. And so thank you for that suggestion. I thought that was great. So we're going to be doing, but it's going to be giddy up time here for quite a bit of stuff. But just let you know what's on the horizon so we do not, basically surprise you. Now, here's another thing prior to adjourning. Recruiting. We don't have 60 applicants, as you said, Dante. We should strive for a full complement of board members. That's 3 alternates and our 12 full member board by the end of the year to compensate for those who will be leaving and those who will not be returning. When I say leaving, those who are termed out. So again, we need your help. Let's get this stuff on board up to where it should be. And with that, let's adjourn. Our next CAB meeting will be September 14th. And thank you all for your participation. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.